well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed, or the right to acquire them as well. Good day to you. Thanks so much for being a part of this edition of Bearing Arms Cam & Company. I'm Cam Edwards, as you probably know by now, I would hope anyway. You know, I was writing a story for Bearing Arms just a little bit ago about a proposed gun range that is trying to open up in the Bay Area of California, and I said that has to be as difficult as trying to open up a strip club in the buckle of the Bible Belt, right? And there may be a customer base, but you're going to get some community opposition. The same is true for gun stores in a lot of the more populous areas of California. So there's a story that I've been following for a few weeks now in the town of Goleta, California, right outside of Santa Barbara. And a man named Dan Ashton has had a gun shop there in Goleta for over a decade. Goodland Guns has been operating in the Old Town section of Goleta, but Dan wants and found a new place. The problem is that his new neighbors don't want him there, and they've started a petition trying to get him to leave. There's nothing that can be done. He's got his permit. He's been approved to operate. He signed a 25-year lease. So now they're essentially just trying to guilt trip him into finding another location. I reached out to Dan yesterday and asked him if he'd come on the program to talk about this. And honestly, I wasn't sure what he would say. I can understand if, he just wanted to kind of lay low, put this behind him. But no, actually, Dan was very appreciative. And we had a great conversation about a not so great situation there in Goleta. I think Dan's going to come out okay, but boy, the not in my backyard crowd is out in force trying to keep Goodland Guns from opening its doors in its new location. Take a look and a listen. Dan, thanks so much for your time. It's good to meet you, sir.
Likewise. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. And boy, this is quite the kerfluffle that you were causing there in Goleta, California. Tell me a little bit about Goodland Guns, because you've been around for a while, right?
Yeah, I started online back in 2011, just selling ammunition kind of part-time as I was still doing a full-time gig. In 2013, I got my FFL, opened a brick and mortar store. So I've been open since 2013 in Goleta, just about the same area that I am now. And yeah, it's been a little bit of a challenge being in California, but at the same time, it's worked out. We've done pretty well.
So your current location is in this is the Old Town business district, is that right?
My old location, yeah,
okay.
Old Town. It's basically the old fairway of Goleta, the original road, kind of through Goleta. They call it Old Town Goleta. Right next to the original Habit Burger. Sure you've heard of that, the chain. And yeah, Old Town's kind of gone through some changes. They recently went to a 4-lane road down to a 2-lane, kind of made traffic a little bit more difficult, a lot more congestion. And, we kind of outgrew our place. We're looking for a place to grow at this point.
Did you have any issues when you moved into that original location back in 2013?
No, none at all.
Okay.
None at all.
So you decide, you need more space. You start looking around. You found a property. As I understand it, this property had been vacant for quite some time, right?
Yeah, it was an old 7-Eleven. And back in 2023 sometime, along with several other stores, 7-Eleven decided, I believe, to close this particular location due to profitability. And so it sat vacant for at least 2 years, 2 to 3 years. Got pretty run down. Lots of interesting stuff going on, obviously, with, vacant properties. People tend to move in, quote unquote. And yeah, so it's a much larger facility, 2,400 square feet, plenty of parking, basically just fit the bill for all of our wants and needs for the community, at least our customers.
And so you applied, you had all of the zoning paperwork. How difficult is it, by the way? Because I know that there are some places in California, like Redwood City, that have put, moratoriums in place on new gun stores. How is it working with the city of Goleta when you decided to make this move?
So this has actually been a process for a total of 3 years.
Wow.
For about 2 years, I got to explain a little bit. So Santa Barbara kind of went through an exodus. One of its industrial kind of areas called the Funk Zone, sort of, basically got upgraded and pushed a lot of the business out. A lot of the industrial parts just got straight up pushed out. Rents went from $1.50, maybe $2 a square foot, up to $4 to $6 and $8 a square foot. They kind of turned it into, a community center. Lots of bars, wineries, and that sort of stuff opened up. So Goleta is a sister city next to Santa Barbara, and I've been here for 20 years. I like Goleta; it's a little bit more country than Santa Barbara is. But during that exodus, all the businesses essentially came to Goleta. Cheaper rents at the time, more space, more availability. But because of that, that's why it took 2 years just to find a couple locations. The first challenge was finding a landowner or a landlord that was willing to rent to a gun store. About 90% of the applications that are, or not even applications, but inquiries, were just no, no gun stores. We don't want a gun store, sort of a deal. A lot of it is like the grocery stores. So we have all these like little outlet malls or outlets where, there's either a grocery store or there are a lot of community centers, and they have moratoriums against gun stores. So Ralph's, Albertsons, any of those types of shopping centers essentially say, you cannot have these types of businesses if we're going to be here. So that was the first hurdle, was just actually finding a location that was viable and willing to rent to a gun store. Little did I know the second issue was a little bit with the city of Goleta, and I don't want to give them, I don't want to point it all towards them. They're just simply interpreting California Building Code, California Fire Code. Most cities in California have essentially just adopted what California says they can do.
Okay.
A lot of it was difficult because of the interpretation of so much regulation. I mean, as you know, California is one of the most regulated states on businesses. So I had a lot of emails, over 150 back and forth with the city of Goleta on my first location, which was in an industrial zone. And, we have something called an accessory use clause. So my plan was to essentially do like an industrial use, such as warehousing, minor manufacturing, and then have a small retail store in the front. And that was not easy. Well over $20,000 in professional fees, and I literally have nothing to show for it, let alone paying rent for that entire time, trying to make it work over a year. So essentially, I had this industrial building, couldn't do anything with it. The city wouldn't issue a business license there. And so I went and reached out to this location, the old 7-Eleven, got really lucky with the property owner. They're willing to rent to me. And because it's zoned retail, it's a pretty straightforward transfer. You essentially apply for the license as long as you have your FFL, your DOJ paperwork, and also obviously your local licenses. They'll issue the business license. So it has not been easy. It's been very expensive, but it's all worth it. I'm glad we're getting settled in. Everything seems to be working pretty well.
Your neighbors would disagree. So that gets me to how I found out about what's going on, because the Santa Barbara Independent ran a story a few weeks ago about some parents. There's a daycare, like there's your property, then there's a fence, there's a playground, then there's a daycare, right? The playground is not a public playground. It's owned by the daycare, right?
Correct. Yeah.
So you've got the daycare owner who says, "Oh, not in my neighborhood." You've got some parents who say, "Oh, this is completely inappropriate." Nobody's really been able to articulate why, as far as I can tell. It just seems like there is this, there's just an issue with a gun store being near a daycare facility. And have you heard, like, I mean, what is the complaint, other than we don't like what you do for a living, Dan?
I think that's exactly it. Honestly, I think the daycare is a little bit of an excuse. I think
Okay.
even if there was a different business next to me, I think there'd still be some pretty, vocal opposition to this. That's what I've kind of come to learn. I don't think it's the daycare. I think that's an easy excuse. I think what it is just mostly the community. I mean, when I went to the community event, I think it was August 4th. One of the parents even said, "I had no problem when you were next to the other daycare, but now that you're in this neighborhood, I have an issue with it." And I think that speaks volumes there, and the way it works is Goleta and this zone that I have, or the way that they did the district or the map, It is kind of a funny nub, because 7-Eleven, basically built and bought that building, back in the 60s. I think the planning goes all the way back to 65, early 70s. They had to draw their boundaries around 7-Eleven because it had been there for so long. And of course, the daycare next to it also got zoned community center. Forget what the exact verbiage is, but it's literally these two pieces of property, which are the only community zoned properties around the entire residential area. So, I think that's part of the vocal opposition is that that's just how the city of Goleta did it. I mean, I don't think they could have done it any differently.
And now you've got the city talking about how they do want to make changes. Now, this would not, I don't think this would apply to you. You've signed your lease, you've got your permits, you're good to go, right?
Yeah, yeah, and I've spoke with the city. Actually, I've had several complaints of illegal construction since starting the project, and I've spoken with the city of Goleta on site 3 times now. And finally, the second time, I just straight up asked them, am I going to have any issues with this? And they said no. All the proper steps have been followed. You have your business license. Unless something illegal happens, like if I lose my FFL or lose my DOJ licensing, there's really nothing that can happen. So I'm set. I'm good to go.
When are you set to open the doors in the new location?
So I'm going through like a soft opening since August 10th. We're doing a grand reopening on September 5th. So kind of a limited Saturday. We're going to do some free food, live music, do a big sale. But we are actually open right now. Our hours are 10:22 to 5:56 Monday through Friday.
I love it. And I mean, Dan, you want to be a good neighbor to the folks in this community, right?
Absolutely. And that's why I went to the community event, which, I wasn't invited to. I found out through a reporter about an hour before it happened, and I wanted to hear their side of things. And I've been willing to make changes to appease them to a certain extent. I went ahead and installed a visual barrier across the fence. A lot of the parents complained about being able to see into my parking lot. So that was one of the first things I did. I also put some blackout, shades on the windows so that, during business hours, we can still see out, but no one can see in. So, I'm trying to do my best, and, I'm always open to any conversation that they want to have. I haven't met with Heather over at the daycare yet. She started the petition, before even saying hello. I did meet the director, and we had open conversation, and I've always been out there saying, let's work together. I think we can both coexist here.
I mean, I would like to think so. But again, that's a two-way street, right? I mean, you can be as cooperative and as polite as you want, but if you've got this hostility coming from the other side of the fence, you can't control their actions. And it is, I will say it's disappointing to see this, especially the fact that, again, you weren't invited to this meeting. Sounds like there are a lot of people who want to talk about what you're doing, but they don't want to talk to you about what you're doing.
I think there's a small percentage. I mean, I was actually really surprised at that community event. There was a lot of people in support. They actually wanted to blame the city of Goleta for failing them, which, I hear those complaints, but at the same time, it's all about being involved in the community. I mean, the city of Goleta, or any city rather, it's not their responsibility to notify the public when a new business opens up. Given the area that we're in, people feel very strongly against firearms. And so they felt that it shouldn't have been treated like a regular business, which I think is incorrect. I mean, I think, what I'm selling here is highly regulated. It involves serious security investments. And, I think it's just it's plagued by what I sell, not what I do.
Yeah. And I mean, that gets, I guess to the anti-gun culture that exists in California and the efforts, I think, by California government to destroy this culture of lawful gun ownership, right? To make gun ownership seem unusual and dangerous and something that you should be concerned about. It was amazing reading some of these comments. I mean, as you well know, Dan, you've got some of the most restrictive laws in the country. And I'm not sure that any of these folks are aware, of California's 10-day waiting period, of all of the hoops and hurdles that you have to go through before you can walk out of your store with a firearm. It just seemed like really the issue was there's a gun store here. We don't want a gun store in our neighborhood or in our community. And why can't we do something about it? And the bottom line is because we're talking about a fundamental civil right, ultimately, is why you can't do anything about it, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think from hearing from most people, especially the comments, is exactly what you said. They don't understand the immense regulation that we face. A lot of people think that you can just walk in the store and walk out with a gun, and they don't understand that there's a 10-day wait. They have to go through, a California background check, along with the NICS check. And some people think all guns are loaded, and they're coming out with pack and heat, straight out of the store. So I think it's just a misperception of how gun stores operate. They don't understand the aspect of hunting, sport shooting, and every other angle of shooting that goes along with owning firearms. They just see the stats that they want to pull, and they want to just use it against like.
Yeah. Well, Again, I hope that things go smoothly for you. I'd love to check back in a few months after the grand opening on September the 5th, and maybe check back in before Black Friday when things get super duper busy for you. Maybe we can check back in like mid-November, see how you're doing.
Yeah, that would be great.
Awesome. Well, Dan, again, I appreciate your time today. Sorry that you're going through everything, but I hope that once the doors open officially and folks see that, okay, all of my fears were unfounded, there is no cause for alarm. Hopefully things will settle down and you can just get down to business.
Yeah, I hope so too. Thanks, Cam. Appreciate your time.
Thanks so much, man. Appreciate it.
Have a good one. Thanks.
Thanks to Dan for joining us on the program. I love those operating hours, by the way. I think that should be industry standard. All right, let's get to today's Armed Citizen story, our good deed of the day, and our recidivist report. We'll start there with a case out of Seattle. Teen arrested in Seattle police chase, also accused of armed robberies. Seattle officials are looking at revamping and tightening up the juvenile justice laws in Seattle, which basically right now is like a 5 strikes and you're out policy. They want to reduce that to 2 strikes. So, second offense, you start to do some time behind bars. Because again, right now, generally speaking, a juvenile gets arrested, they get charged, they get released to their parents. Maybe they get put on electronic monitoring. But juvenile detention is not really an option. You've got to commit a string of crimes, as, by the way, this teen did. So, according to Seattle police, the teen was driving a stolen car last week when an undercover police officer started following the car. Apparently, the driver and the individuals who were in the car realized what was going on because 2 suspects jumped out of the car, started shooting at the undercover officer before the teen then led police on a chase. The teen crashed into a car in Rainier Beach. 1 suspect is in jail. 3rd is in the hospital. And the teen was in court on Tuesday for essentially a bond hearing. He's now facing 4 charges in this incident: rendering criminal assistance, unlawful possession of a firearm, hit and run, and attempting to elude a police vehicle. His attorney wanted him released on electronic monitoring. Prosecutors objected to that, pointing to the teen's lengthy criminal history, which includes, now these are previous convictions: taking a motor vehicle without permission in the 2nd degree, 2 convictions of 2nd degree robbery, convictions for vehicle prowling in the 2nd degree, as well as obstructing a law enforcement officer. And the day before this incident, police actually put out a bulletin alerting officers, hey, if you see this teen, arrest him, because he's the suspect in 3 armed robberies that took place back in June. One of them, a guy who was sitting in his car, 2 other convenience stores that were robbed. Don't know this teen's age. I mean, he could be 14, he could be 17. We know that he's under the age of 18. And we know that despite his previous convictions, he has spent very little time behind bars. The judge in this case said the court finds the respondent is a threat to the safety of the community, does not have any alternative to secure detention that would assuage any of those concerns, and so he is being held without bond in juvenile detention for the time being. How long that lasts, given the far-left politics of Seattle, well, that's another question entirely. Today's Armed Citizen story from Philadelphia: man shot defending cousin during $25,000 Rolex robbery in North Philadelphia. I got to say, I think if I was walking around with a $25,000 Rolex, I don't think I'd be walking around with a $25,000 Rolex. B, if I did, pretty sure I'd have my sleeves down so you couldn't see my $25,000 Rolex unless I wanted you to see it. But whatever. This was, I believe, Sunday morning in Philadelphia. 25-year-old man shot while trying to defend his cousin. Police say the incident started when 4 male suspects approached the victim's cousin. They robbed him of this Rolex watch that, again, worth approximately $25,000. As the robbery unfolded, a 5th suspect approached the victim on a bicycle and then pointed a handgun at him. The victim has a license to carry. He drew his gun, tried to defend himself and his cousin, but his gun jammed and didn't fire. The guy who rode up on the bicycle fired a shot at the armed citizen, hitting him in the leg. I'm still counting this as a defensive gun use because this was 5 against 2, but all 5 of these suspects took off. They didn't wait to see if this guy could, clear the stovepipe and fire back. The presence of that firearm, even though it had malfunctioned, was apparently enough to send them running. And this could have been much worse than it was. And I think because this individual had a firearm, it didn't fire when he wanted it to, but because of the presence of that gun, I think the robbers felt like they had some other place that they needed to be. None of these individuals are in custody. Thankfully, the injury to the armed citizen, not life-threatening, and I hope that he recovers soon. I hope police are able to make some arrests. But again, I think this was not your typical defensive gun use, but still, I think one worth talking about. Finally today, our good deed of the day in the right place, at the right time, willing and able to do the right thing. A Colorado man who rescued a child after she fell out of a second-story window. This individual honored this week by the West Metro Fire Rescue Department. Khalil Rodriguez was given their Citizen Award this week. He said he never expected recognition, just thought he was doing what he knew was right. This was back on July 23rd at an apartment complex. Khalil Rodriguez was outside with his brother. He heard a piece of plastic hit the ground. He looked up. He saw this child, a 4-year-old girl, who was sort of, kind of bobbing in and out of a second-story window. So he called 911. He tried to get the attention of the people in the apartment, but he also then moved underneath the window. And he said when she got her head through, that's when I was like, okay, this is going to happen. So he's on the phone with the 911 dispatcher who told him, essentially, hey, you're going to need both hands. So he hands the phone off to his brother. She drops out of the window. Rodriguez says he caught her just like it was a football. Paramedics arrived, evaluated the girl. According to KUSA in Denver, she was able to stay with her mom. I kind of have thoughts about that, but okay. Khalil Rodriguez says that he felt relief knowing that the kid was safe. This is about a 15 to 20-foot drop, so that easily could have been fatal for this child. And he said, I wasn't looking to be praised for this or rewarded for it. I just did the right thing. True enough. But there are some people who would not have done the right thing. And I think it is good to honor Khalil Rodriguez for being in the right place at the right time and being willing and able to do the right thing. All right, that is going to do it for this edition of Bearing Arms Cam & Company. I want to thank you, as always, for being a part of the program. Looking forward to seeing you back here again on Monday. But be sure to check out BearingArms.com between now and then. We are keeping you up to date on all of the latest Second Amendment news and information from all across the nation, even beyond. We are taking a look at some international laws. Thailand looking to crack down on gun owners. The Philippines looking to crack down on gun owners. Australia is still looking to crack down on gun owners after the Bondi Beach attack. And there are complaints from gun control activists that Tasmania's newest gun control proposal does not go nearly far enough. We were covering that for you as well. But our focus does generally remain on our Second Amendment rights in the United States, the threats to those rights, defensive gun uses like the one we talked about today, litigation, legislation, and a lot more. So again, be sure to check it all out at BearingArms.com. Have a great rest of your week. Hope you have a fantastic weekend in store as well. We'll see you back here again on Monday. Until then, be well, be safe, and be free.